Thanks everyone for joining us for another Eastwood live video. Today we're going to talk about body fillers, which ones to use, where to use them, and best yet, how to apply them. Before we get started and get too far into this, if you've never tuned in one of these before, we want to make it as interactive as possible. So we have Randy over here on the computer. He'll be able to see the questions you guys are putting down. Make sure you get some good ones. He can either answer them right there, or he can also shoot them over to me. We'll answer live here on the show. So let's get started. Randy, you have anything fun going on this weekend?
No.
No? Boring
No,
weekend? Did you make it to Spring Carlisle?
I built rockers for my Plymouth.
Good.
So that's fun. Actually, it's month 4 of building rocker panels, but no, I did not make it out to Spring Carlisle. How was it out there?
Busy, very, very busy. Yes, Friday was nonstop busy from start to end. I barely even realized it was time for lunch. So
cool. So we got body fillers, huh?
We got body fillers. Let's get started. So we have a whole line of body fillers to be able to deal with your needs. We're going to start off with our Contour Premium Body Filler. This is a direct-to-metal body filler, or you can also put it over top of epoxy. So a lot of guys, they want to blast their car. They don't have time to do the body filler in one weekend. They don't want the flash rust. Put the epoxy down, and then come back and do your body filler as you have time. Next one up is going to be our short strand body filler. This particular one is going to be, you have like a fiberglass hood. It's not quite right because, let's face it, aftermarket parts never fit quite right. You want to be able to trim an edge or something like that. This is a great product, very, very strong. An added benefit is it's also waterproof. So if you use it somewhere on a panel where, for some reason a pinhole of water comes through, it's not going to soak into the filler and wind up failing on you nearly as quickly. So that's a good thing. We also have our aluminum filled body filler, where this one's going to come in really handy is those sail panels where you previously had lead. You no longer want to use the lead. Body filler technology has come a long, long way, so this is going to be a great substitute. Very, very strong, but it's going to have that slight flexibility that you need. Another one we have is our Contour glazing putty. The biggest use of this is after you're done doing your first step of body filler. If you still have a couple little pinholes you may have accidentally gotten in there, or some deeper sand scratches, 120 grit, grit scratches, where you don't want to go into your primer where it could potentially shrink in, you will be able to go over top of it with this and finalize your body work. The last one not to forget, it's kind of gets classified in the primer world, but it's not quite a primer, is our Contour polyester primer surfacer. This stuff essentially is going to be a sprayable version of the glazing putty. So it goes on very, very heavy and allows you that last chance to really block your panels out nice and laser straight. So there's something to consider on all these lines and where to use them. So let's talk about actually applying the filler. So one of the first things you want to do to make sure you have great adhesion is use a wax and grease remover such as our pre-painting prep. What this is going to allow you to do, it's going to allow you to be able to clean off any kind of residues that are going to actually, potentially affect the adhesion. Because the last thing you want to do is go through all of this work and have the body filler not actually adhere to the part. Even like your fingerprints or something like that can affect adhesion. I don't know if camera guy Joe can get in here, but as an example, the hood looked clean, but you can see like the dark dirt that came out of this with just a quick wipe of the right where my fingers were placed in. So it shows you like something that would have potentially affected your adhesion down the road. Now with the resins that are in today's body filler, one of the most important things when you get a brand new can is to make sure it's well stirred. So this can has been pretty well stirred. I'll see if I can get it in here for camera guy Joe to get. You'll see a nice consistent color to the body filler. You don't see any thinner or lighter colored resins that are coming to the surface. So that's something to look for. If you do see that, no worries. All you have to do is stir it. Make sure you get the stick all the way to the bottom of the container. That way you can get those resins stirred up. Like I said, this one's already been done. I took care of it, but I wanted to be able to show you what you were looking for, that nice consistent color. Let me bring over my mixing board so I can get everything all set up here. Mix right here on this particular hood. So another question that's really important about body filler is how to make sure it's properly activated, because this is a catalyzed product. So to get it to harden in the right amount of time, to make sure you're getting the strength that you're looking for, it needs to be properly hardened. So most of these are going to mix at a 2% by weight or by amount volume. So it's kind of hard to judge, like how do I figure out what 2% is? So what I'll show you is a quick way to kind of help out. I'm going to do my best to make an approximate 2-inch puddle, and this will apply, and I can also explain it for other larger amounts. But with a 2-inch puddle, you'll want to put cream hardener on, and something else, a little quick tech tip. always need your hardener, because this, just like the body filler, has resins that can separate. So I always kind of need it. I'll push it around a couple times, make sure everything's neat in that tube, because there's nothing worse, and trust me, been there, done it, where you open up this and you go to just put it on and just liquid comes out. Well, now you're not at the right catalyst ratio and you're in trouble. So for a 2-inch puddle, the way to make sure you have properly catalyzed it is to run a bead of hardener all the way across. So you just want one strip of hardener to go across this. By doing that, you know you're about that 2%, that exact amount that you were looking for. If, say, you have an 8-inch puddle of filler, as you're working a little bit larger, you'll want to go all the way across the 8-inch puddle, and then you'll want to do one more pass from the middle out. So that's going to give you the correct amount of catalyzation. Quick, get a shot in here for Joe. You see I've made about a 2-inch puddle, and I've got that nice strip of hardener across it. So when you're mixing, quick tip you never want to do, I'm only going to do it for demonstration purposes real quick, is you never want to stir your filler like this. I'm not going to do the whole thing, because what that's going to do is it's going to introduce air into your filler. It's going to give you pinholes, and when you go to sand it or primer over it, you can run into some serious problems. So when you're doing filler, you always want to knead it. You want to be able to just pull it through to get yourself that nice consistent mixture. That way you're not introducing air. If you do have, get some in, you're going to just kind of flatten it right back out again. While I'm mixing this, quick thing to talk about, I didn't even mention it. This happens to be a quick mix board. So with body filler, one thing you don't want to do is mix onto cardboard. You may have seen it done. It's a bad habit that kind of needs to go away. So this is a non-porous surface. It's not going to absorb any of the hardener. It's not going to absorb any of the resins. That's the fear you have with just doing it onto cardboard. Because if it were to absorb some of that, you could potentially run into problems with it, not hardening right or just not being the strength that it needs to be. So this dent we're working with today, right here, I'm going to show you. A lot of people want to just put their filler on and get right to it right away. But one of the things you want to do is apply a nice, firm pressure to almost, like you could say, wet the area. So this is going to get the right amount of product on there in the beginning, so that way the rest is going to adhere to. If you were to go and just try and do something really thick like that right off the bat, what's going to happen is when you go to sand it, it may pull back on the edges. It may not actually, adhere where you want it to. So when I pulled it real tight, it was just a almost transparent coat where you could see right through it. But what that allowed you to do is get the coverage, get it to wet the surface to prime it for the rest of the stuff to go on to. As you can tell now, I'm actually building up to my amount. I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure on there. I'm just kind of doing it, let my hand do the work, let the spreaders kind of float over the surface to make it nice and smooth, and just kind of smoothing it out. And you want to build up just a little bit past where the repair needs to go. And then what you can do is you can shave the edges and put it back onto the board before you go ahead and get ready to sand. And what this is going to do is when it does come time to sand, it makes it a whole lot easier to feather those edges out. You're not working off of this huge step. It allows you to sand hard in the center and then work your way off. So now that we've done all of that, turn over to Randy and see if he's got any good questions for me.
Yeah, we have a few questions here. Let me try to bring them up.
And one I should...
Do you have a preference of applying the body filler over bare metal or over epoxy primer?
That's a great question. The answer to that one is, the question was, do I have a preference on putting it over bare metal or over epoxy? And the answer is no. Both are going to be great ways to apply it. Over bare metal, usually I'll prep the area with about 80 grit. If there is any paint, which in this example there are not, I will then feather the paint with about 180, so that way there's not these really deep sand scratches into the paint. With epoxy, I'll usually give it 2 to 3 days at least before I start putting this stuff on. Let it kind of flash off a little. But if you're working your project slowly and you're a month down the road, all you have to do is just take a DA sander or hand sander, some 80 grit or 120 grit or so, scuff the surface up. If you go to a little bit of bare metal where the dent is, no big deal, because the body filler is going to be a direct to metal filler and not going to be a problem. One thing before, I know you probably might have some more questions that I forgot to say is, a lot of people also feel like they're really, really rushed with body filler. I've done this whole demo, I've calmly spoken to you guys, and even then, the filler's only just now starting to pull. So, I mean, it's not like you have to worry about being crazy rushed and getting this stuff done. I mean, I got that whole thing on and I still had plenty of time to spare. So anything else for me?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this was mentioned. I was answering questions here.
Sure.
What is the max thickness body filler can be applied or what's the thickness you'd want after it's applied and sanded?
Sure. So that's a good question. The question was, how thick can you actually apply this body filler? So with every body filler, you really never want to go past 1/4 of an inch thickness. The reason behind that is that's where it's really designed to be able to bite to the surface. You go any more than that, you really need to step back and do a little bit of metal working. You're not trying to create a mold or a model here. You know, you're just trying to take out those last little bits of surface imperfections. So if you know you're going to be past 1/4 inch, I would recommend going back doing a little more hammer dolly work to get you back to it. That way you know your repair is going to be strong, it's going to hold out, and it's not going to come back. While I was talking about this, I don't know if you guys noticed, little trick is you probably want to use these spreaders over and over again, not just pitch them after every single one. So this spreader at this point is all ready to use. It looks like it's brand new again. And all I've done is I've sprayed the body filler with a little bit of pre, and what that allowed me to do is with this quick shop rag, clean it off, and we're ready to go again afterwards. That way you're not blowing through these. Anything else for me, Randy?
Yeah, I got another question.
Sure.
After you apply the filler and the primer surfacer and everything, how do you, what do you use to find the highs and lows?
So a great way to do it, we didn't bring it out here. We're going to be shooting a video in the near future of how to find the highs and lows of your body filler. It's the video actually in general is just going to be the fastest way to be able to sand down and get your area all blocked out so you know your filler's straight. And in doing so, we're going to talk about it's a product that's my brain is completely locked up right now. It's the Guide Coat. There we go. I got frozen on that one. So the Guide Coat. Ours is going to be a spray-on version. So a lot of times what you can do is you can come in with body filler, hit it really quick with like some 36 grit. What that's going to do is it's going to open the pores back up again. It's going to allow you to just create that initial hard cut to level everything out. And then you can come back after you've done the rough shaping, spray the Guide Coat on there, and now transfer over to some 80 grit sandpaper. And then as soon as you start sanding, you'll instantly see, you'll take off that top layer, and you'll see those 36 sand scratches, and you'll see any pinholes you might have. And then as you're sanding, you can get rid of all of that. Because if at any point you still see that Guide Coat and you see any 36 sand scratches, and you try moving on to like a primer or something like that, you could run into problems where it'll bridge over, but then after a little bit of time, it's going to shrink back. And after you're done painting your whole car, it'd be nothing worse than seeing these sand scratches. It won't be, it's not going to crack the paint completely on most cases, but there's nothing worse than seeing sand scratches.
Yeah, we have another question.
Sure.
Is there a proper cure time for the filler?
Yeah, so the filler, technically you can let it go as long as you want. You could let this, I could, come back for this for the next video, and I could start sanding it. It's going to be a little bit harder. There is a trick where as the hardener begins to, as it begins to harden, like right now, it's no longer grabbing my glove anymore. It's pretty much dry. There's barely any stickiness to it. So you can almost start hitting it with the 36 now. And what that's going to do is it's going to save you a lot of dust and a lot of elbow grease. They still call it body work. It's still hard to do. But at this point, and it takes a little bit of practice to find that exact spot, but sanding now, it's going to kind of roll off to a certain degree instead of 24 hours later where it may be a little bit harder. But certainly there's no wrong way of doing it. You can let it sit for 2 weeks like this, and if you have time, you run out of time, something happens, don't worry about it. You don't have to take it all the way off. You just have to re-sand it, that's all. As long as or start sanding, I should say, as long as it didn't get any moisture in it. Because one thing about body fillers, other than the short strand, is they will absorb moisture. So you don't want to wet sand them. You always want to dry sand them.
That's all for the questions. There's one suggestion is that maybe sometime you could do a demonstration on how to apply body filler to contours and edges.
We certainly could do that, because that one can be a tricky one, trying to get it on the contour and not, flatten it out so it's harder to sand or more attempts. But one neat part about body filler is it's only body filler. If you're learning, you put down, body filler, you accidentally sand too much, don't worry about it. There's more of it right here. All you gotta do is grab your can and put some on, so don't feel bad. And these clean sheets, nice part about it is you're not sitting there trying to clean a board off or anything like that. All you gotta do is rip your piece of paper off and you're ready to go. You have a nice clean sheet to do another one. So hope you guys enjoyed today's demonstration. Hope you have some good techniques now to be able to put down your body filler, since it's that time of year. It's warming up. We're all coming out from doing the mechanical work and starting some body work. So remember to always tune in. We're here Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. And what's tomorrow's, Randy? Do you know? Figured I'd catch you off guard.
Jeez. Tomorrow is, hold on. Wednesday. Can we skip to Wednesday?
Sure, let's skip to Wednesday.
Wednesday is the belt disc sander. We got some tips and tricks, like how to sharpen tungsten with it.
Well, that sounds
and tomorrow is...
No worries. I caught him off guard, so it's fun to be able to do that once in a while. You always seem to catch me off guard with a quick question.
Hold on. I'm not done. I'm not done yet. I'm still thinking. Tomorrow's Tuesday, right?
Yep.
Tomorrow's Tuesday. This is exciting TV here. You know something? They're going to have to tune in.
Exactly. You're going to tune in tomorrow.
You're going to have to tune in and find out, I guess.
You'll find out exactly what it is. So just remember, always tune in, and also like us and subscribe on Facebook and on YouTube. That way you guys can get the notifications, and that way you know when we're going live. If you feel
Pro flaring tool tomorrow.
Pro flaring tool, there's a good one.
If anybody heard me talking because my mic was still on.
Yeah,
the Pro flaring tool. Learn how to flare brake lines, and we're going to have the brake bleeder wrenches.
Then that's a good one for tomorrow.
Yeah, you probably knew that. You're just trying to hang me out to dry.
If you know anyone who could potentially benefit from this as they're getting ready for the season, also feel free to tag them in this video so that way they can come out and check it. Thank you guys, and have a great day.